everybody. So yesterday, Mrs. Montgomery talked with you about how important narration is, right? This idea of kind of stitching things together by telling some information that's going to help someone kind of get through your story. And in the beginning, we call that a backstory, where we provide a little bit of information about where they are, what they're doing, things like that. And then when we go from one scene to the next, the next day at breakfast, right? That's a little bit of narration, right? It kind of helps us get from one place in our story to the next. Well, I'm here to talk to you about the end again. So I talked to you before about drafting your ending. So I'm also going to talk to you today about how, just like we want narration in all of our other scenes, in our first scene, and how we kind of get it from one to the other, we also want it in our ending, right? So I want us to look for a second back at our, just to give you an example of this. So if we go to the very end of Prince Cinders, this author does the same thing. She does a little bit of narration. So just listen for a second and then we can think about how we could put it into our story. So Prince Cinders married Princess Lovelypenny and lived in luxury happily ever after. And Princess Lovelypenny had a word with the fairy about his big hairy brothers. Remember that? And then ... whom she turned into house fairies, and they flitted around the palace doing the housework forever and ever, right? So what's happening in this story is the author is giving us a little bit of narration to wrap up the entire story. So telling us nobody's talking, there's really not a lot of action. They did use some punctuation there to kind of give us some dramatic pausing there, but really they're just kind of wrapping things up for us and telling us how the story ends. So we're going to wrap up that. If I could add one more thing to the bottom of here, I would add wrap up the story at the end and use narration. And you can come back, I know you have access to this online, and look at this and just think, so how did this author do it? And basically she just said what happened to the Prince Cinders, what happened to Princess Lovelypenny, and she also explained what happened to those silly, not so nice stepbrothers and how they became house fairies and had to clean all the time. And that's really what narration is, just giving a little bit of an ending and thinking about how am I going to wrap up the whole thing by just giving some information that I almost think about it like a bow. Like, right, when we finish a present, we put a nice little pretty bow on it. That's kind of like what we're doing with our writing. We're wrapping everything up and telling the reader how everything ends. Okay, so have fun working on this ending. We'll talk to you soon.